Whitnie Riley is a leadership and employee development strategist. She's a women's corporate readiness program mentor and an 8 times best-selling author who helps career women live a life free from corporate burnout. Stay with us for more on Whitnie Riley's story.
You have a story that is unique, a story that needs to be heard, a story that people care about. So it can get them to stand up for what they believe in. It can inspire them to change. It can inspire them to take action. It can inspire them to care. Care enough to be the light to someone's darkness. Care enough to extend a helping hand to someone who's down and out. Care enough to call things the way they are and see them for what they could be. Your story can make a difference. Your story can save a life. Your story matters. One story changed the entire world. Your story could do the same. All you've got to do is own your story.
If you're just joining us, then welcome to Books with Brigetti. I'm Brigetti Limbanda, your host from Cape Town in South Africa, and our live stream is made possible by StreamYard and BeLive Media, helping business owners make live videos. A special warm welcome to you, our audience, because this is what it's all about. It's an audience-centric show. So whether you're watching us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, Twitter, also over on Amazon Live, a very warm welcome to you. If you're brand new to the show, if you've never watched the show before, please feel welcome to type new in the comments, or just let me know that you're new or that you're a first-time viewer, and we would love to give you a shout out. Our amazing guest today is Whitnie Wiley. She's an organizational leadership and employee development strategist. She's also a board director, a women's corporate board readiness program mentor, and boy, do women need that. Whitnie is also an 8 times best-selling author, a podcaster, and a speaker, and she helps career women plan their resignation through strategy, coaching, and planning so that they can live a life free from corporate burnout. This is such an important conversation or topic because of the times that we live in. Everyone is feeling the pressure and the stress and the burnout. And how do we go from surviving to thriving? Let's invite Whitnie to chat about this and hear her thoughts on how she helps women thrive. Whitnie, welcome to the show. So pleased to have you here today. Thank you for joining me. And I am absolutely looking forward to our conversation today. Happy to talk about the 2 amazing books that we're in, which is The Fearless Entrepreneurs and also Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore. And we've got Sally Green saying a hello to us there, who's also in one of the books for us. So Sally, welcome. Great to see you in the audience. So you are an 8 times best-selling author. And yes. I want to just, how do you do it? Where do you find the time in your busy schedule to be writing so much?
Actually, I'm writing a lot more than even the 8 books would indicate. So I've contributed to the 8 books, but I am working on a couple of solo projects. So I'm constantly writing, and I actually have a practice called morning pages that it helps with the creativity. It helps me to stay in the flow of writing. and I run a writers accountability group. So it's really important. It's a part of how I communicate my message, and it's something that I really enjoy doing. But let me take a step back, because you said welcome to me, and then you jumped right in, and I didn't have a chance to say thank you, Brigetti, for having me on your show. I appreciate it. And I'm in California, so we're worlds apart, but I am happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I love the title of a couple of the books that you're in, and it's all about one habit.
Yeah.
You know, tell us a little bit about that before we jump into the other books, because oftentimes we feel overwhelmed by change, and where do we get started? And I like the fact that a couple of those books started with one habit. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So there is a series, it's called One Habit. There are a number of different books. I have contributed to One Habit for the World's Greatest Leaders, One Habit for Success, One Habit for Entrepreneurial Success. And the concept is exactly that: baby steps, right? All you need to do to change your life is to change one habit. And if you can change something, right, and take action on it, then you have the opportunity to change your life in ways you probably never even dreamed of, and to have the kind of impact on other people that we all strive to have. So I have enjoyed contributing to those books. One of them, the One Habit for Entrepreneurial Success, is the largest book ever published on entrepreneurial success, and really proud to be a part of that project.
Is that the One Habit for Entrepreneurial Success, and your chapter is work when you do your best work?
Yes, yes. And so what how I work with my clients is to start with a vision. I think it's really difficult to get where you're going if you don't know where you're going, right? And
Right.
this is a paraphrase, I think, of the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland. This basically, if you don't know where you're going, anywhere will do. And so the way to get where you're going is to know where you're going and then put a plan together. And you can be spontaneous along the way. I think a lot of people feel like if I plan things, it doesn't allow me to be spontaneous. And that's not the case. You can always be spontaneous, but you still want to have a goal, something that you're shooting for. You take action, you change a habit, you take a baby step. And as you take one step after the other, one day you look up, you look back, you see how far you've come, and you're like, wow, I got where I was going. And it was just because you took one step after another. And so, one of the things I think is really important is that you understand when you do your best work. I'm a morning person. And so I'm really good about getting up early, getting the things done that I want to get done, and then shutting it off in the middle of the day. I like to be done around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so that requires that I get up, but that's because I work best that way. My husband, on the other hand, works well in the evening. And so he will often work till midnight. There's no way I'm working till midnight. My brain doesn't work that way. And so I would rather get up, go to sleep, get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and get something done than to stay up till, midnight, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So I think it's really important that you understand when you work best. Do those things that require your best thinking, your best creativity.
Mm.
When you work well, and then save maybe the mundane tasks, you're returning phone calls or emails, return those later in the day or a different part of the day, and use your best thinking, your best creativity when you do that best. And I think for entrepreneurs in particular, but really anyone, if you can master that particular habit, it will definitely make a change in how you do your work.
The thought that sprung to mind for me while listening to you was being intentionally spontaneous.
Yes, absolutely. That I love that, and that's my approach. So I am a time blocker. And every minute, I learned this a few years ago, every minute has a purpose. And so even play, right? I schedule in playtime. I schedule in, I guess, spontaneity time, or free time, but it's scheduled, it's intentional, it's purposeful, it's
Right.
for relaxing and, chilling and whatever, but it's very intentional. And what I find is a benefit for that, particularly for women, is that there's then nothing to feel guilty about when you are supposedly doing nothing, right? A lot of us have this problem where we feel like if we are not doing something, somehow we're missing out, or somehow we're not being productive. And I am a huge believer self-care. You have to
Mm,
take care of yourself first before you can take care of other people. You have to feed your mind, body, and spirit with things that lift you up and help you to be productive and happy, and be able to serve other people. And if you don't do that, then you start to feel that burnout, right? That
right.
worn down. And then you can't contribute, and you are wondering why, what's going on, why do I have brain fog, how come I can't think, why can't I focus, why am I irritable with my family
It's
or
like putting
even
your
at
mask
work.
on first, right? It's like they
Exactly,
say, if you're in a
absolutely,
plane, put your own mask on first, because you can't
absolutely.
serve others. Even people who are first
You
aiders are
can't
taught.
pour from an empty cup, right? Is one of
Right.
the things. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And so you've got to take care of yourself. And until you do that, it makes everything else more difficult. But we've got to let go of a couple of things. One is fear. Another is perfectionism, right? Feeling like
Mm.
we have to do it perfectly, or it has to be done a particular way.
Yeah, I think a lot of us may I know I struggled with that, the sort of
Hmm.
perfectionist syndrome, and it really holds you back terribly, from moving
Yes.
forward when you have this overarching sense of everything has to be just perfect before I do the next step. You hold yourself back tremendously when you do that.
Yes.
But I do like I learned this the way of doing things is just also listening to you talk about getting things done and being strategic. So the saying goes, early in the year, early in the month, early in the week, early in the day, and just get things out of the way, get it done, be structured, be intentional, but also be intentional about self-care. I want to talk a little bit
Yes.
about the book, Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore. And your
Okay.
chapter intrigues me. You talk about being authentically me. Now, a lot of people don't quite get what authenticity means, or what it should be, what it should like. Can you talk a little bit about what you mean by being authentically you and what that means for other people? What is authenticity about?
So for me, and I'm going to preface this, that a lot of things that we talk about in life, that people say that they want to be maybe balanced, maybe it's authentic, you know, successful. The definition resides within you. You have to decide what being authentic is to you. You have to decide what being successful is to you. You have to decide whatever it is, right? That ultimately you have to figure out what that means for you. In general, it means just being true to who you are. I um I subscribe to this notion that we don't need fixing, right? We're not broken. We don't need fixing. We probably need to rediscover who we've always been, right? And so,
Mm,
life, parents, they love us, but parents, well meaning, they pile things on. We get these layers: schools, peers, society. These expectations and how we're supposed to live our lives. And so when we're trying to do all the things for other people, we start to lose the essence of who we are. If you look at kids, they are pure bundles of joy, right? They're just going about life, doing, playing, being joyful, happy. They're exploring, they're curious about everything. And as we get older, we start to have these expectations put on us that we're supposed to be realistic about life. We're supposed to get serious. And all of that, the play, the imagination starts to fade away. And as more of that goes away, we lose the authenticity of who we are at our core. And so it's about getting in touch with that, going back, being willing to be curious and playful and creative. One of the things that I discovered, out of tragedy, unfortunately, my son passed away in 2005. And in the months and the early years after that, I wanted to start tapping into some of my creative side. Now, I always thought I wasn't creative. I always thought I was logical, analytical. I studied mathematics in college originally. I went to law school. So I was like, yeah, you're very logical, analytical, and you're not creative. I used to joke, I couldn't draw a straight line with a ruler. And so I started placing limitations on myself about what I could do. And we all do that in some respect, right? We run up against an obstacle and we internalize that, and it becomes, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. And the next thing you know, you're inside yourself, right? You start to make yourself invisible to yourself and to the world because you're not living your full purpose. You're not living as big as you could be. And that's not to say that we all are supposed to be on grand stages, right? Everybody's not going to speak in front of 50,000 people or audience of millions or be in movies or those kinds of things. But we all have the ability to be our biggest and best selves for the audience that we have, whether that's our family, whether it's our church or our synagogue, the community that we live in, at work. All of those are places where we can shine if we will allow ourselves to do that. And so being authentically me, being authentically you, means just stepping into who you are, not being afraid to bring your quirks, right? Bring the things that make you you. And so it's interesting that we think, what normal is, and normal is, normal people act this way. But the reality is that being quirky, being unique, that's normal, right? Because each and every one of us, all 7+ billion of us on this planet, are different from the other 6,999,000,000, blah, 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 right? So we are all different. We are all unique. And therefore, normal, that's what's normal, is being unique, not all trying to fit into some box of what we think we're supposed to be, do, and have. And once we will accept that, it becomes easier to be willing to dream. And we stop dreaming, right? Well, you ask children, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they've got all kinds of ideas. And then somewhere along the way, someone says, you need to be realistic. That won't pay the bills. You can't do that. And you stuff that dream and you go and do something else, get in the family business of being a doctor or a lawyer or whatever it is. And that's not really who you are and what you want, but it's what's expected. And so you do it. And then you always have inside of you sort of this, I wish I could, be an actor, or could paint, or, drive race cars, or whatever it is. When in reality, and I think we are living in a time and space where we can see that you can make a living doing absolutely anything, right? Maybe that wasn't the case 40 years ago, 50 years ago. We've got the technology that allows you to earn a living renting out your house, renting out your car, driving your car for strangers, being on YouTube or Amazon Live or whatever it is, right? These things weren't happening. I won't say they couldn't have happened, but they didn't happen until they started to happen. And now, whatever you can dream is possible. And so, why not explore, all the things that excite you, that you're interested in, and be open to the opportunities and the possibilities that present themselves or that you create that will allow you to make a living doing whatever it is you want to do. And so when you are authentic and answering to that part of yourself, it allows you to tap into, the creativity that answers the question, well, how am I going to do this? But it's
Yeah.
really difficult to get there if you are living someone else's dream, living someone else's expectations.
And the truth is, that we are seldom happy people when we are not being our authentic selves. There will
Right.
be that something inside of us that just makes us not feel truly who we are, or really, really happy. As you said, there'll always be that nagging voice inside, and you're always wondering if, and it's funny how we try and conform to society. We try and
Yes.
conform to our partners. We want to please our parents. We want to please our community. And for some reason, we put ourselves on the back burner.
Yeah.
And it prevents us from being happy, from being our true selves. And one of the reasons I wanted to also ask you about, what does it mean to be authentic, just in terms of being online? Because I see a lot of people sort of don't quite understand what it means to be authentic. Being authentic doesn't necessarily mean wearing your heart on your sleeve. That's not what authenticity
True.
um, is
Yeah,
about,
you don't
because
have to
some
put
people
it
get
all
that
out there.
wrong. You
Right.
don't.
You can be, I think, that piece about vulnerability is you don't have to put everything out there, right? That's not the requirement. But being vulnerable, being authentic, being willing to share who you are, that the vulnerability part is being okay that if people don't like who you are, that's okay, right? That's the vulnerable part is putting, just being who you are and allowing that to stand on its own. I have a on my desktop on my computer, I've got a vision board, and one of the pictures on the vision board is Betty Davis, and she has a quote that says, "What other people think of me is none of my business." And so it's one of those things. It's not that I don't care, right? So I don't go through life running roughshod over people. That's not what that means. That
Mm.
what you think of me is none of my business. It's not that I want to be abusive or rude or anything like that,
Or
but that
obnoxious. It's
you
not, it's not about being
obnoxious.
obnoxious.
It's not about any of that. It's about I am who I am. If you don't like that, actually, I'm sorry for you because I think I'm pretty awesome, and the people that I know think I'm pretty awesome. And, we could probably have a great friendship, a relationship that could be beneficial personally, business wise, and other things. But if you form an opinion about me or someone else without really getting to know who they are, then you really are cheating yourself, right? And we all have to sort of get out of our way when it comes to
Mm.
relationships and relating with other people and giving them a chance and not expecting people to be reflections of who we are.
Of who
And
you
in
are, right?
reality, and in reality, the things that we see in other people that we don't like is generally a reflection of the things about ourselves that we don't like. So we have
Right.
to really stop and get curious about what's going on there? Why don't you like somebody? Why do you feel that way about? Now, there are obnoxious, mean, evil, rude people in the world, but there's a reason that they are that. And
Mm.
maybe you not responding to them in kind is what it will take for them to start to turn that around.
Right. Linda is asking a question that I think is a great one. She says, how do you know when you've reached that point of authenticity?
So again, I think you have to decide ultimately what that looks like for you, right? So for me, I knew I reached that point sort of when I got to a place where I don't care what other people think of me in general, right? In general, I don't care because I know who I am. I know where my heart is. I know what my motives are. I know what I'm about. I know that I'm not here trying to hurt people, right? So once you are in touch with who you are and what you bring to the table, um,
Mm,
then it doesn't matter what other people think.
right.
Except for this, I will say this. If you're getting a consistent some input that's consistent, right? And what people say about you really is just feedback. It's information. So if you're getting some consistent feedback that is saying that you are a particular way, maybe you've got blinders on about that. And if that's something that a way that you don't want to be seen, then it will require some work on your part to get in touch with why is that coming out? Why I don't mean to be that. So why is that coming out? Why how's that manifesting? Why are people seeing that in me? If one person says it, maybe that's they're having an off day, you're having an off day. But if you're getting something consistent, then that I think would require some introspection, getting curious about it, and then being honest. I'm a big believer in self-awareness, and I think pretty much everything starts there. I do a lot of work about leadership, and leadership starts with being aware of who you are, how you interact and relate with other people, and until you can get a grasp on that, it's easy to just kind of go through life running roughshod over people.
Sally also wants to know, when are you not afraid of criticism? Which is also a good question. I really do believe that one does need to reach that point where you start feeling secure from within, and that
Yeah,
security shouldn't be dependent on external factors. I always say, make you happy inside. No one can
yeah.
disturb your happy place without your permission.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you get to a place where you're not afraid of criticism when you again trust that you are the person that you want to be. So you have a vision of that. Who do you want to be? If you could, project yourself at the end of your life, not the most fun exercise, but I think it's a really good one to do. You project yourself at the end of your life, and what are people saying about you, right? What would people say at the end of your life? And if it's not what you want them to say, then you've got some work to do in order to be what you want to be, not what they want you to be, but who you want to be. So if you're okay with people saying, whatever it is, then continue to live your life the way you're living your life. That's authentic too, right? Even if you are, a bully, if you're okay with that, then you get to reap the consequences that go along with that. But if you're coming across as a bully and that's not what you want, or people are constantly criticizing something that you're doing, again, I think introspection, finding some time to get some self-awareness about what's going on, and why people are saying that, giving people opportunity to to talk with you without being defensive, right? So if someone is saying, or several someones are saying that you're coming across in a particular way that you don't want to be, ask them some questions about it. Is it situational? Is it all the time? Often things will happen. People will catch us in not so great moments, right? And when they catch us in those moments, they form an opinion that that's how we are. And
Yeah.
if that's not how you are, if it was truly a moment, then maybe there's an opportunity to say, when I face, in a situation maybe where I'm pressured or under the gun or something like that, I've got to find some other strategies for how to deal with that, so I don't come across in a way that's abrasive or and rude, so that that's who people think that I am, because I've done that twice in the last 20 years and someone happened to be there to observe it, right? That doesn't mean that's who you are. But it requires some self-awareness on your part and a willingness to listen to other people. But you have to give them space. You've got to give them a floor and safety to share, not be defensive, not try to explain yourself away. And then you go and have the conversation with yourself about what you might need to do to make some changes.
Right. I just want to point out to everyone who's watching us, if you are watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, if you scoot over to Amazon Live, you will see that we've got the book we were just talking about, Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore. And Whitney's chapter is called Authentic, and that's why we're talking a little bit about authenticity. Now, what I would like to know, what I would like you to know about that is that the book, all the proceeds from the book Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore, goes to a non-profit called Dress for Success. So if you buy the book the proceeds go to Dress for Success. It's a non-profit charity organization, registered, and the proceeds of that book is going to help other women. So if you are all about empowering other women, in other words, I like the phrase, being able to give people a hand up on your way up the ladder. So if that is you and you're wanting to help other women, or if you're a man out there and you're watching and you're passionate about helping the women in your life, then buy the book as a gift for yourself or a gift for someone that you love, and help Dress for Success at the same time. So we want to move on to the other book we want to talk about today, which is The Fearless Entrepreneurs. And again, if you are over on Amazon, that book is also in the carousel. It's called The Fearless Entrepreneurs. And we're going to be talking in a minute about Whitney's chapter, which is called Out of My Head. The proceeds of that book will go to Lemonade Day. Again, it's a non-profit charity whose mission it is to help youth for life through fun, proactive, and experiential programs. And they also help young people with life skills, character education, and entrepreneurship. So all the funds for that book is going into that charity organization. So Whitney, getting back to you, your chapter is called Out of My Head, and I think it's such a intriguing chapter, because I think that is something that all entrepreneurs struggle with is headspace and how they feel about themselves and project, and so they kill their entrepreneurial journey even before they get started. Talk to us a little bit about your chapter, Out of My Head.
Certainly. So, it started, I had an entrepreneurial journey, I don't know, 20 something years ago. Started down a path and it didn't work out. And in the middle of trying to make that work, I went back to work, waiting tables. I had a job as an engineering aide at an engineering technician for a public works department, was doing fabulous work that I actually loved doing. Very technical, was working my way towards being an engineer through a different route, because I didn't study engineering in college. I studied applied mathematics. And so I was sort of doing this workaround to get to on this path, but I was struggling in school. I was struggling with the subject matter and the engineering and sort of the transition. But I enjoyed the work I was doing, was designing freeways and roads and things like that, learning how to use CAD. And then I learned that part of that process was the environmental aspect of public works projects. And I started projecting myself 30 years into the future. I was like, yeah, if I worked on these projects and nothing ever happened, because environmentalists, and not knocking environmentalists, they have a job to do, and I get it. But I was sitting, it's like, I don't want to spend my life working on things that won't matter, right? That aren't going to happen, that don't have sort of an end game. And I started thinking about other things that I was interested in. And one of them was helping people to live their dreams. And so I started down this path of entrepreneurship. It didn't work, and I didn't have that job to go back to. So I started waiting tables. Hated waiting tables, and just not my thing. And then I ultimately went back to school. I went to law school, started a career as a lawyer and a lobbyist. And in the early days, oddly enough, after sort of running away from politics with the public works, I ended up in a place where I was directly involved in politics as a lobbyist. And the early days were fine. And then there came a time where I didn't enjoy it so much. And then that was compounded after the death of my son. And I'm asking all these questions about life and what's the meaning of life. And, life is short. And why am I spending my time doing things I don't really have passion for? Why am I wasting my time? But I didn't know really what I wanted to do, right? If I wasn't going to do that, and I'd spent my time in law school intentionally working towards that end as a lobbyist. And then I get there and I didn't enjoy it so much. I was like, well, what am I going to do? I'm not qualified to do anything else. And oddly enough, I didn't have a bachelor's degree. So in California, there are some law schools that you can attend. They're bar accredited. I didn't need a bachelor's degree to go to law school to pass the bar. And so that was the path that I took. But if I gave up the law and went in a different direction, I didn't have something else that I actually could do. So I started thinking about how I was going to make a transition. It involved going back to school. The things I was interested in by that point involved leadership and management. My observation of what I thought was less than stellar leadership. And I kept thinking, there has to be a better way. So I went back to school, got a bachelor's in organizational behavior, and then a master's in organizational development and leadership. And I kept thinking I would get a job. I wasn't thinking about being an entrepreneur. And when my husband first mentioned it, I was like, yeah, I guess I could do that, but I don't really want to. And part of it was this fear that I had failed before. And so it's like, well, I've already done that and it didn't work. And so I guess I'm just not cut out to be one. And that's not the case, right? So I was very much wrapped up in my head, hence the title. Again, it was like overthinking and trying to reason and how would I make this happen? And I had to let go of some of that analytical stuff and just get in touch with what was really important to me, what how I felt like I could make a difference, how I would combine my talents, my tools, my gifts, and how I could package that in a way that would allow me to make a living. Right? If I wasn't going to be a lawyer and a lobbyist, what was I going to be? And so in addition to school, I got a coaching, went through coaches training, and I still wasn't thinking that I was going to be an entrepreneur. I just kept thinking somebody's going to hire me to do this organizational thing somewhere else. But the more I thought about it, it's like I don't really want to work for somebody else. And if I'm not going to work for someone else, how am I going to do this? So it really was, and the interesting thing was, as much as I felt like I needed to be in touch with my soul, with my heart, and make some decisions that were not so analytical, not so logical, I actually had to think my way out of that, that's where the irony is. I had to actually think my way out of being overly analytical. And what I realized is that there's a balance, right? And there's a place, and it may not be 50-50, right? And it may and on different days it ebbs and flows. And that's one of the things about balance. It's not so much being balanced; it's about balancing. And so there are days when I am very much living out of my heart and doing things that I feel and that feel right. And then there are other days when I have to think through what I'm doing. But it ebbs and flows. And ultimately, it's about using all parts of me, all the gifts that I've been given, which is I have a brain, I have a heart, and I have to use them both and not exclude one for the other.
I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot. I don't know if you have your copy of the Fearless Entrepreneurs with you. Do you have a favorite paragraph in the book that
I do. I do have a copy with me. Let's see. I think the beginning is one of the things. There's the quote by Dale Carnegie that I have that says, "Inaction breeds fear, breeds doubt and fear. Action breeds confidence and courage. If you want to conquer fear, do not sit home and think about it. Go out and get busy." So it becomes about taking action ultimately. Hence, the name of my business was just shifting into action. And so there is a place for thinking, there's a place for planning, there's a place for feeling. And ultimately, you use those things, right? Those tools, those resources that you have available to you. And you make a decision that you're going to move in a particular direction. And then you have to take action. And until you take action, nothing changes, right? And it's just an exercise in your head or in your heart. You could write it on paper, but ultimately you have to do something. And this goes back to one of the questions you asked earlier, about taking action and taking a step, a baby step, changing a habit, right? It's just taking one step at a time. And I am a Jack Canfield certified success principles trainer, and there is a concept that he has, that's called ready, fire, aim, instead of ready, aim, fire. So it's ready. That's the thinking, the heart,
yeah.
the brain, right? Coming up. This is what I'm going to do, and then you just do it, and then you assess, did I hit my target? If you didn't hit your target, then you make some adjustments, right? Maybe they're macro adjustments, maybe they're micro adjustments, but you make some adjustments, and then you fire again and you check to see where you are. And so you can sit and think forever and never do anything because you're waiting for, we talked about this earlier as well, perfection. You're waiting for the perfect moment, which is never going to come. As I say, the perfect moment to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next perfect moment is now.
Is now.
Right? It's now. It's now. So we can't go back. So now So take some
Yes.
action, see where you get. And if you need to make some changes, make some changes. It's feedback. That all that is, the thing that we are most afraid of is nothing but feedback. It's information that we can take, get curious about, ask questions, and then say, okay, well, that makes some sense. Well, let me try it this way, or let me try it this way. And you just keep taking one step after another.
Right. What jumps out at me is now is being open to feedback and then being agile,
Yeah.
and then taking action in response to that. You know, I really like that. I wanted to ask you, just thinking of the two books and the other books that you've written.
Hmm.
We specifically talking about Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore, and then the Fearless Entrepreneurs. And I looked at, your work, the books that you're involved in, but the two we're talking about today, and then the name of your company, Shifting into Action. It all just seems to flow together. So I'm very curious, how did you come up with your company name, Shifting into Action? Because those are all powerful words. How did you come up with that name?
It was born of my experiences, right? And I'm huge on self-awareness. And so I spend time every single day. I have a morning routine. It includes meditation and exercise and affirmations and visualizations and the like. And then there's time, particularly when I'm out running. I run 3 days a week. I walk the other days a week because I have a dog and he needs to get out. And so I wear headphones, but I don't generally ever have anything playing. It's just so that I can like focus in. And I'm thinking the entire time I'm out walking or running, and ideas are coming to creative ideas are coming to me. I'm thinking through, why is this happening? What have I done to invite this into my life? Where can I go next? How am I going to do this? I'm asking the questions. I don't always get the answers right away, but I'm asking the questions because I think curiosity helps to bring that self awareness in. And
Right.
so I was, working through at the time I was going through coaches training, and I was like, well, the original business was called The Winner's Edge. And I wanted to separate from that. And what coaching is about ultimately is helping people get out of their own way, right? Helping them understand that everything they need they already have. You have what you need. You know what you need to know. It's about bringing it out. I'm here as a guide to help you bring it out, to then put together a plan and implement it. But I can't do that. So you have to, after you've done all the stuff, at some point you've got to move. So it's about shifting the mindset from just thinking about things and to so that you get to a point where you are taking action on things, and they go together. And it's really a feedback loop, really, right? So again, going with the ready, fire, aim, it's a feedback loop. You're doing something, you're assessing, you're taking action, you're thinking about it, you're assessing it, you're figuring out how can I do this better if I tweak this. But you're constantly going to be taking action. And until you can get to a place where you can shift your mindset so that you can do that. And a lot of times we've got so many blocks, right? That the job of the coach is simply to help you recognize that you have the blocks and then help you to move through the blocks, over the blocks, under the blocks, around the blocks, whatever, bust them. If it's not serving you, then how can we maneuver it, right? How can we move through it, around it, whatever? And that's what that's about.
Before we end, talk to us a little bit about why dealing with corporate burnout is so important, because of the times we're living in. At the moment, we've got a lot of additional, we live our lives with stress. We can't avoid stress. But considering that we've had to pivot into roles and ways of working that challenge us in ways we never may have anticipated or expected, can you give us some tips on avoiding corporate burnout?
Sure, sure. Um, I, I will say this: start with what it is that you want, right? If we're all too often focused on what we don't want, what's not working, and so start with what it is you want. Where is it that you want to go? How do you, and not just, oh, I want, a 2,000 square foot house, or this car, that car. I'm not talking about that kind of thing. Who do you want to be? Right? And if it is about acquiring something or doing something, who do you have to be in order to have the things and do the things that you want? So having a vision is really important. I think next is understanding what your values and your priorities are, and then get in touch with your values and your priorities. You use them to weigh, um, to compare and contrast the things that you are actually doing. A lot of times, burnout, corporate burnout in the family, wherever it is about feeling like you don't have the resources that you need. And there's a Tony Robbinsism that says it's not a lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness. And when we're
Mm.
over feeling overwhelmed and burned out, it's hard to tap into what our resourcefulness is. And so it's about getting some clarity. And if you are not someone who currently is someone who meditates regularly, um, don't call it meditation, call it, sitting in silence. Just and get in a habit of getting quiet. I think the one of the best things we can do for our health, a couple of things, is to eat well, is to move your body, and then is to get quiet. And if you can get quiet, which takes time, it takes practice. That's why it's called a meditation practice. It takes time, or silence practice. It takes time, because your brain is like spinning around in circles. And but if you can get to a point where you can learn to, um, come inside, just come inside. And sit in silence, even if stuff is floating around in your head. Learn to be non judgmental about it. If a thought comes in, acknowledge that it's a thought and say, "Thank you very much. I am sitting in silence right now." It's going to keep happening until it sees that you're not going to give in to it. So, know where you're going, what it is you want, get your values and priorities straight, and start filtering out those things that are not in alignment with your values and your priorities. You can't do everything, right? That's the bottom
Mm.
line. You cannot do everything. You cannot be everything to everyone. And so you have to decide, where are you going to spend your limited resources, your time, your money, your energy. Where are you going to put those things? And if you get clear on your values and your priorities and what it is you're trying to work towards, if it doesn't fit with that, then you have to learn, the best word, the best sentence in probably any language is no. No is a complete sentence. And at some point, you have to learn to say no. Sometimes
And
it's
not
to
feel
yourself,
guilty.
and not feel guilty about it. Absolutely. And you don't feel guilty because it's not in alignment with your values and your priorities, right? And so again, going back to that, being authentically you, being clear about what your values and your priorities are, allows you to say no without guilt. The guilt doesn't serve you. And so you're working towards doing things that serve you. And while that doesn't mean that you only ever get to do things that are like rainbows and unicorns in your life and you're like all happy about, it doesn't say that. But there are things that you'll do that you may not enjoy because they serve a higher purpose in your life. They serve your values, they serve your priorities, they serve your vision. And so it's part of what it takes to get there. I can't say that I enjoy sitting down at the beginning of the week. Actually, the way I do it is on Saturday at the end of the week to plan out the next week. I can't say that I enjoy that, but I know that it keeps me on track, right, for the bigger picture of things that I want to do. And so you've got to allow yourself the ability to have this clarity and then to do those things. So I think if you start there, it's a great place to just build a foundation. And then, of course, there are other things that you can do on after that. But until you build this foundation of clarity of who you are, what's important to you, all that other stuff, the noise will continue to hit you. And the way to start to eliminate the burnout, the overwhelm, um, the, the frustrations is to get clear about what it is you want. How do you want to feel? I want peace. Like peace is one of my highest values. And so everything that comes before every opportunity, I'm weighing, how is this going to help me be peaceful?
Whitney, I absolutely love that. Um, how does it make you feel? Because when you're feeling good about what it is you're doing, it enables you to serve better. It enables you to show up better. And you can do more not only for yourself, but you can do more
Yes.
for those that you serve. Um, if you're feeling good, and I know that from personal experience as well. You know, I've spent many years not feeling good about myself,
Mm,
not feeling good enough. And again, it circles back to other people's expectations of
yeah.
who they think I should be, but it prevented me from feeling truly happy and feeling truly secure. And I couldn't give of my best self in whichever endeavor I was involved in, because I needed to take care of me first. I
Yes.
needed to put on my mask so that I could show up as the best version of myself. So I resonate so
Absolutely.
much
It's about
with what you
boundaries.
are saying. Yes.
Right? It's about boundaries, setting those boundaries. And the most important thing that you have to remember about boundaries is if you don't respect your boundaries, other people will not respect them. So that's why it's so very important to have that clarity about your vision, your values, and your priorities, because you know now what you're protecting. That's what the boundaries are for. They're for protecting that, what you find to be the most important thing. And you have to honor those boundaries in order for other people to honor them. And then there, obviously there's strategies and tools and things that you can do to make that happen. But you've got to start there. You've got to start with that foundation.
Wow. I think so much flows from putting in those boundaries, as you say, because if you're not clear about what your boundaries are, other people are going to, you're going to allow people to step all over you, and you're never going
Yeah,
to find that happy space in which you can be truly productive um, and shine in whatever your chosen career is.
absolutely.
In
Absolutely.
your whatever it is you want to do. Um, and other people, absolutely, as you said, other people will treat you the way you teach them to treat you.
Absolutely. Yes. And
It's
that becomes
a
the thing,
simple,
right, about
simple
the
truth, but
burnout.
very profound. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what, Brigitte, all of it is very simple. That's the thing. All of this is very simple, and we have complicated it for all kinds of reasons, but we've complicated things that are very simple. And if we would get back to simple, doing things simply, looking at life simply, that you can have the things that you want. You can do the things that you want. You can be who you want. You can have all of that, right? And it's not complicated, but it does require that you get clarity and then say everything that's not this, right? That's not serving whatever that is for you. Everything that's not that, it needs to be put on hold. And maybe there's another time for that. Maybe there isn't, right? But only you get to decide what that is. And like you said, if you're not letting other people's expectations run your life, then your ability to manage the situations that help to create burnout and the overwhelm in your life, they will start to melt away.
Whitnie, thank you so much for this amazing conversation, and for all the gems that you've shared with us today. And I want to just give a huge big shout out to our audience on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, Twitter, Amazon Live. Thank you for stopping by and taking part in the conversation with us. We truly enjoyed that. Stay safe, everyone. Whitnie, I'd love to have you back again. I think we could talk for hours. There's so much to talk about. Just, So thank you kindly for your time. Stay well.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Until next time, stay safe. We'll be back soon again.